Okay, team, this week we are going over the ditch yet again, and we're going to see a lovely lady by the name of Jess Weiss, and she runs a very clever little business called Human Tribe. I've had the privilege of working alongside Jess with some of our mutual clients over in Aussie. Jess, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks.
Now, why don't you tell everyone what you do and why you do it?
Yeah, so Human Tribe, we're a training consulting company, and we believe that when people thrive, businesses thrive. So everything that I do is all about how can I help the individuals within a team, the teams within an organisation be at their best. And I know if we can do that, then it's going to impact businesses in a positive way. Yeah.
What do you do when there's a manager in the room that doesn't want to be in the room?
Oh, that's a really good question. I hope that I would have vetted them out at the beginning. I actually quite like when people challenge a conversation or a topic, and I'll often say that at the beginning of my sessions. You don't have to take what I say as gospel. I'll often say, please challenge me, please let me know your thinking. And I quite like that because some of the best conversations come out of that when someone's challenging something. Often it's a mindset thing, and if I'm ever engaged to do work with a team or individual coaching, the very first question I ask is, are they coachable? And sometimes the answer I'll get, yes, if you're up for the challenge, and I'll go, hell yeah, I'm always up for the challenge. But yeah, generally speaking, I've vetted them out before, and people have to, apply or give an expression of interest to be in it so that they're hungry for it.
Love it. You said some things that are really, really important here. One, they're coachable, and two, you vet or get them to apply,
Yes.
which I think you and certain clients that we know do very, very well, and that we get the right people in the room.
Yes, that's absolutely right. And, I'll often say to people, I quote the Matrix, it's like, I can show you the door, but you're the one that has to walk through it. So I'll walk that journey with you. I'll hold you accountable. I'll have the difficult conversations. I'll challenge you. In the end, you're the one that's got to do the work. And I always love when people at the end of a coaching engagement or at the end of a program, or even sometimes during, they'll say, thank you so much. I couldn't have done this without you. And I'm like, you're the one that did the work. Yeah. I was here, I asked you some questions, I pushed you, but you're the one that did the work, and I'm sure that's what you see. The ones who get the great results are the ones who are hungry and willing to do the work.
Yeah, we have a mantra here, which we nicked off a very good sports psychologist called Aaron Schultz. He was a previous guest, and he said, St. John, I only feed the hungry.
I love that.
And he says, my job's not to develop appetite, it's to feed appetite. But feed the hungry, so it's a really good moniker, a mantra that we've adopted here. Now, there's a few things I want to cover which I think will be very useful because you know our listeners. Our listeners are real business owners, they're sales managers. Some of them will know you already, I'm sure, from the good work that you do. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, difficult conversations and holding your team accountable. What are some of the tools and tricks you teach your managers around that subject, which is a tricky one?
It's such a tricky one. I love the conversation of accountability. And I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day, and I think there's a riddle in it, which is, I haven't quite articulated it, but it's kind of like with accountability, it's a never ending. It's not a one and done. Like, it's something you always have to do. But the good thing about it is, as a leader, the more you do it, the less you have to do it. And where that comes to is like when you build a culture of accountability, it's not continuously reliant on you to get people to do the work. And to quote Patrick Lencioni, who wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, he says that the leader is the ultimate source of accountability, but the most common should be peer-to-peer. And it's like, if you've built that culture of accountability, people hold each other accountable. And when you've got a group of high performers, they want to do that. They instinctively do that. They don't want to let their team down, but also there's a little bit of that competition that's in there, that healthy competition. So I think it's up to leaders to create a culture of accountability. And I think what underpins that is there does have to be some trust. It has to be safe for people to say, I don't know how to do that. I need some help. I made a mistake, those kinds of things. There needs to be clarity and buy-in. It's really hard to hold someone accountable if they don't have clarity on what's expected or if they haven't bought into it. So if I say, Imogen, why didn't you do this? And you're like, I never knew I was meant to do that in the first place. Where do we go from there? It's really hard for you.
What are we talking about? You can tell me what to do. I don't even know what my job is. Like, I don't even have a position description, Jess.
Yeah. So clarity, buy-in. And it's an interesting point that you raised there on the, position description, where it's a job description doesn't create clarity and it certainly doesn't ask for buy-in. And, for anyone listening, when was the last time you looked at your job description? maybe when you got the job, probably not even then. So it doesn't create clarity, it doesn't ask for buy-in, which makes it that much harder to hold people accountable. So there's some groundwork that needs to be done, and then we've got the conversation around holding someone accountable. And it's kind of like they're the underlying things of creating a culture of accountability. And then the piece with, you know, where I said the more you do it, the less you have to do it. If a leader asks someone to do something and they don't follow up on it, whose fault is it if it's not done?
The leader should have followed up.
Right? And if the leader doesn't follow up, then what it says to the team member is this thing isn't important.
Yeah, it's not a priority. I paid lip service to it.
That's exactly right. But
I just tick the boxes.
Yeah. And often the team members, I like to make generous assumptions. Often it's not them trying to cause problems. Like, I'll often say to leaders, you know, if they're complaining about a difficult team member, I'll go, do you think they woke up this morning and said, do you know what? I want to just really frustrate St. John today. I want to really annoy him. It's like, no, they don't, right? So let's make a generous assumption that the team member is not purposely going out of their way to not do something. If the leader doesn't follow up, the message they send is, this thing I asked you is not important. But if the leader follows up when they said they were going to, then the team member's going to go, oh, okay, well, when St. John asked me to do something, he means it and he's going to loop back. So I'm just going to do it. Doesn't mean you never have to hold them accountable, but the more you do that, the less you have to.
Yeah, I love that. I love this whole idea of developing a culture of accountability. I can't remember if this is episode like 97 or 98 or 99, but we have a very, very special guest on our 100th episode who will follow you, and he's a very certain All Black. He's a very, very, very well-known All Black.
Cool.
And I can't give it away, but what I will say, teasing the listeners, is he spoke about this very thing, that leaders create leaders. And then other leaders create more leaders. And what happens is it's peer-based accountability, not coach-based top-down accountability. It happens across the board.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome that you're saying, because, and the more you do it, you're saying, the less harder it becomes, right?
Yeah, because people will hold them accountable. They'll hold themselves accountable because you've built that culture of accountability. It's on this team, we do what we say we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we don't, then we take ownership. And also, if we don't, then we know that someone's going to ask us about it. You know, you and I can be peers, and I can come to you and go, "Hey, St. John, you said you were going to get this to me. What's going on?" I don't go to our boss and oh, St. John didn't get me. It's like
exactly.
No triangles, right? It's like if they go to the boss, the question is, well, what did St. John say when you brought this up with him?
Now, to put you on the spot, I'm sure you can have. There's a victim triangle, isn't there? There's a rescuer.
Oh, yeah.
Can you describe that to the listeners?
You're assuming that I know this, but it's a fair assumption. So there's the prosecutor, there's the victim, and
the rescuer.
The rescuer.
Yeah. So the persecutor's like, why didn't you do this? The rescuer's, oh, don't worry, I'll just do this for you. It's too difficult. By the time I've trained you to do it. And the victim's then something like, might sound like, oh, well, I can just never get the right staff. It's just my whole team are terrible. I just can't get hold of them.
Everything happens to me, and often we lean into roles, right? So the rescuer then builds resentment that they're constantly having to rescue people, and that often puts them either in the victim or the prosecutor. Yeah, very good. So why don't you talk to me more about culture, because that's such a huge thing, like a sense of belonging, and then and I just sort of prove that when I bow to your authority. You do the things that I can't do, right? And so I'm a grubby little sales trainer. I do sales. I don't necessarily do leadership. I'll touch on it, but I bow to people that are better. And I often see like visions and value exercises. And I often say the thing that was taught to me when I've gone through this process, when I've been on corporate side, is values are just words in the absence of behavior. So values, schmalues and everything else. But what's your view on vision and values, workshops and culture and sense of belonging and onboarding? Sorry, I know there's a lot in there, but culture, what is it? You know that phrase, you know... strategy eats culture for breakfast?
Yeah.
Culture eats strategy.
So it's the soft stuff, not the hard stuff, the loose and the tight. You know, I think Tom Peters talks about it in Search of Excellence in his book as one of those things. How would you begin to cultivate a culture that wasn't there?
Yeah, it's such a big topic. And I want to make sure we also go back to the difficult conversations because that's another
Yeah,
piece. But
good.
I love the culture conversation, and I'm very much, value schmalues kind of thing. It's like you can throw words up on a wall,
Oh, integrity. That's my favourite. Or responsiveness, or professionalism. Aren't those
honesty.
honesty? Aren't those givens? I mean, if we have to say them, I think we've got a problem.
And I'll often say, get the values off the wall and on the floor kind of thing, like actually
Nice.
living those values. And something that we'll often talk about is people have KPIs, key performance indicators, and I'm sure,
Yep.
all of
No,
your
no.
listeners have got them and they know them and they live and breathe them. Something that's not often talked about is KBIs, key behavioral indicators. And what I really like about this, and we try to ingrain the fact that people should be, or people need to be, a cultural high performer as well as like a technical high performer in terms of sales or hitting their performance indicators.
Yeah.
And the problem is like you can't measure people against culture if there's not a well-defined culture. So
100%.
to those values, the integrity, the honesty, the responsiveness, whatever those are, it's like what does it look like to live those behaviors? And you could do this as above and below the line exercise, for example. What does integrity look like? What does it not look like? Right? Communication as a value. What does that mean? To live that would be we proactively communicate, we close the loop, we follow up, we bring other people into the conversation. Suddenly you can then go, oh, okay, I get what it looks like to live that.
Yeah.
If it's not well defined, and I'm jumping around here, but when you said like where do you start with something like that, is it needs to be onboarded from the very moment someone joins an organization. And that can't be done if it's not well defined. So we'll often talk about having a culture on a page where it's a really nice one page of this is who we are. And it's not from a KPI perspective. It's from a this is what it looks like to be a cultural high performer within our organization. If you want to do well here and if you want to stay a part of the team, this is what that looks like. And different organizations have different things. Like I've got a client that we've done a lot of work on sustainable high performance and a lot of sort of neuroscience based stuff with that. And we developed their culture on a page, and there's things on there like making generous assumptions, and you don't always have to think positively, but you do have to think helpfully. And
Love that.
Taking accountability for your own actions and making sure that you're staying above the line, and it's the opposite of all the blame and excuses and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, having something that defines it, onboarding people from the very beginning, but then also measuring people's performance. So the organizations that we work with where we're really building in sustainable high performance, it's not just the KPIs, it's their metrics and their bonuses are also tied to the KBIs. Are you a technical high performer as well as a cultural high performer?
I love this, guys. Listeners, did you hear that? There's KPIs and there's KBIs. That alone is a gift, and their remuneration, their compensation, their profits are based on both, not just the technical, but the cultural as well, right, Jess?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm sure most people listening have unfortunately had a situation where you've got maybe your best salesperson, they bring in the best numbers, but are they necessarily who you want to emulate across the team?
No, they're a dickhead. They're a dickhead. Yeah. We call them rock stars. Yeah, exactly. So, what you're also doing is you're tolerating that behavior and saying that that's okay and that's acceptable. The other thing around culture is it's like a communications vacuum, right? If you don't have a well-defined culture, other people bring their cultures and define your culture by their own. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that about leaving a vacuum that others fill?
If anything in life is not defined, it'll just become whatever people bring. So every organization has a culture. It's not always a good one. The ones that don't have a good culture, it's defined, but it's defined by the wrong sort of behaviors, right? So this is where that culture on a page comes in handy. It's like, this is our Bible. This is what we will hold you accountable to. right? Remember, we were talking about with a culture of accountability, there's got to be that clarity and buy-in. They need to know, what does it look like to be a cultural high performer, and then know that they're going to be held accountable to that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. I love that. And I also love the idea of a culture on a page. It's not like a 38-page PowerPoint deck or all the bullshit that's on the reception wall that's gathering dust. We have integrity, honesty, responsiveness, professionalism, the extra mile. What does it mean? Exactly. So, Jess, you've answered it beautifully. Now, my friend, let's go back to this difficult conversations. There's something that all managers dread. What are some of the tips and tricks to help them sort of manage? We've talked a little bit about the accountability being across the board and a culture of accountability, but what are some of the tools you help managers to, that dread of, I've got to have that bloody conversation with St. John?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things. So I don't like the term difficult conversations. Good. And I'm not just getting into semantics here, because if you tell yourself it's going to be a difficult conversation, it's going to be a difficult conversation.
It's going to be difficult, yeah.
And from a neuroscience perspective, what they know when they put people in those big fMRI machines is that the anticipation of a difficult conversation looks the same in our brain as actually having the conversation, not to mention however many times we replay it in our heads after. That is cognitively draining, right? So the longer, when people are like, I've been meaning to have this conversation for 3 weeks, I'm like, oh my God, the amount of energy that's taken away. That they could have been investing, that they could have been investing in their team or their clients or like anything proactive, right? Their family, anything proactive, but they're wasting it on that. So first one is, I like to rebrand a difficult conversation. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
And our mindset when we go into a conversation is huge. And this goes for whether we want to call it an accountability conversation, a feedback conversation, a difficult conversation, a coaching conversation. The mindset that we go in with is going to determine the outcome. Like the way you approach it will determine the outcome. So even something as small as I have to versus I get to. I have to have this conversation. I hate having to have difficult conversations. It's going to suck if you go in telling yourself that. And the way that our brain works is that it looks to confirm what we believe. So have you ever had the experience where you're looking at buying a new car and suddenly you see that car everywhere? Yeah,
it's the reactivating articulation system, the RAS. Yeah.
That's exactly right. There's not suddenly more of that car. We're just telling our brain what to look for. So 100%. If you're telling your brain that this is going to be a really hard conversation, this is going to suck, I hate having conversations, every time I talk with St. John, he's so difficult, then that's what you're going to get.
That's what we're going to get. And I suppose then we're talking about, we spoke to this, but a lovely lady on the Brainy Business, and she's been on, and she's going to be superb guest as well. She talks about the cognitive reappraisal, the reframe you, which is exactly what you're validating here. Is if you think it's a difficult conversation, you framed it, it's going to be a difficult conversation, whereas you reframe it, it's just a conversation, then we're taking away all that angst, that rumination. And then the important point you made around that, the energy leakage and the opportunity cost that comes from that, because you're just building it up and up and up and up, and all the catastrophization of that conversation, which is... so tell us more about how would they plan and prepare to enlist and enroll that person, say you and I've done something naughty, like I've spent too much money on my expense card, or I've been done for speeding, or I'm a bit of a dickhead in meetings, or I talk over people, or I dominate, or I'm aggressive. How do we handle that? What do you do?
So the first step is always to prepare. Whenever we're having these kinds of conversations, the first step is to prepare. And a question I like to always ask people is, who are you speaking to? And the answer to that is not simply, I'm speaking to St. John. It's like, okay, what else? I'm speaking to someone who's doing their best. I'm speaking to someone who I know has a lot of family stuff going on. I'm speaking to someone who gets quite overwhelmed. I'm speaking to someone who's maybe lacking self-awareness. Like, who are they beyond the name? Because immediately that helps us have a little bit more empathy for them, but it also reframes the conversation away from, I'm speaking to my biggest nightmare.
Yeah.
Right? So that's the first one. And then it's, can we articulate the issue in one sentence? And the reason I do that is often when I'll sometimes have a leader in a session, and they'll spend 10 minutes having this big rant, and then St. John did this, and then they did this, and then this person came to me because he was upset, and blah, 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 blah. And I'll go, okay, what's the problem in one sentence? Often what it boils down to is something quite simple. So it's when you get stressed, you snap.
Yes. Perfect.
Right?
And then I can receive that, kind of, because you've mentally overloaded me. It's like when I talk to my middle boy, Baxter. If we talk to him too much, he loses it. We just got to give him one thing. So I've seen also with these really good coaches, whether it's rugby or cricket, they have little 1 or 2 word snaps. Like they're like, if they're in the rugby, they're like blow over, which is going through the forward, and they know exactly what it means. That is such a good little tool.
Yeah. So. And it helps us as the person facilitating the conversation be clear on what is it that I'm actually talking about, rather than going in and feeling like I'm attacking you on all these different, and then you do this, and then
offload on you,
because that's gonna get someone's
cortisol, defensiveness, amygdala, all the rest of it. You're gonna get their back up. Yep. This is a shameless plug. I just did the Crusaders Leadership Development Program. And they've got a good record. They won like 8 Super Rugby titles, in succession.
Yeah.
And one thing they said, and I think you'll love it, is they said you need to coach the person before you coach the player. Yeah, and what you're saying is exactly that. Is like, who am I talking to? So when you said that, I was like, that is exactly right, because what we're doing is you're talking to Jess, and Jess has got a lot on, or she's been traveling, or some of her kids have been sick, or a partner's been away traveling, or her mum's ill, or something like that. And you've got to take all the context into account, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. We take the whole person, right?
Perfect.
So can we articulate the issue, sort of the what and the why, in one sentence? And then it's also considering, what's the outcome that I want from this conversation? And often we don't consider what we want from it. We just go in going, I'm frustrated, I need to have this conversation.
Yeah, I'm going to offload, and that'll feel cathartic and brilliant for me. I'll just get off my chest, and then you just deal with whatever wheelbarrow I brought over to you.
Nothing good is ever going to come from that. So it's like, what's the outcome that I want from the conversation? And when we're clear on that, it's a lot easier to go in and feel like we can be on the same side of the table as someone, rather than there's this problem that's sitting between us. It's like, we're in it together, and we can solve it together. So that's the preparation. And then, of course, like, when am I going to do it? Where's it going to happen? Are there staffing changes that kind of need to happen? And that planning, it might take 5 minutes. It might take 15 minutes. It is so well worth it to set yourself up to go into that conversation. And then when we go into the conversation, the biggest thing that I believe is engage them as soon as possible in the conversation. So you introduce that area of opportunity, that what and the why, and then you go, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, or something like that.
Yeah.
And the sooner you can engage someone in the conversation, the sooner we're going to get to somewhere good. Because if you don't feel heard, if you don't feel listened to, if you don't feel understood, you're not going to hear what I have to say, but you're also not going to engage in any sort of change.
Amen.
Yeah. And the big thing that I'll often talk about, one of my favorite books, Chris Voss in Never Split the Difference.
I know, I can see the book behind you. I can see it.
Did you see? Yeah. I recommend that. I think that should be a non-negotiable for any leader, because it's... So what we're going for is that's right.
Yeah, not you're right, because they're just appeasing you with that.
Yeah, that's right. And it's the so let me go back a second. So I've introduced the area of opportunity. I've invited you into the conversation. I say, I really want to hear your thoughts on this engine. And then you're going to talk. And that you might talk for 2 minutes, you might talk for 10 minutes, and I'm going to listen, and we're going to actively listen, right? Listening is not a passive skill. We are actively listening. And then we're going to paraphrase back what we've heard. St. John, thanks so much for sharing. Just to confirm I've got this right. What I'm hearing is this. Is that right? And imagine a flow chart, right? You're either going to say yes or no. If you say yes, great. We move on, and we move on you feeling like you're understood and we're on the same page. Or you're going to go, no, that's not right, and you're going to refix it up. Or you're going to go, oh yeah, and also this. And I'm going to go, cool, thanks for clarifying. So just to make sure, this. And it's like a flow chart until, is that right? Until they say yes, and then we can move forwards.
I love that. I love that visualization of a flowchart where literally they feel like they're in control of the conversation. We're not dominating. We're not being aggressive. We're not getting their backs up.
And then we want them to come up with the solution, right? So again, it goes back to that buy-in. Okay, we want them to come up with the solution. And so we've now had the discussion. We've introduced the area of opportunity. You feel heard. You feel listened to. It feels like we're on the same page. And then it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do about this? Right? You might not ask the question like that, but you're moving to the problem solving. Right? And as much as possible, we want them to steer the conversation because they're going to be more bought into it if they're coming up with the solution.
Yeah, 100%.
But also, we've come into the conversation knowing the outcome that we want from it.
Yeah.
And we might, depending on the conversation, we might present that to them. We might say, a really cool, is that right? Yes, great. Where I would love to get to is X, Y, Z. What do you think about that? How does that sound? How do you think we're going to get there? Like, whatever the situation is.
You're constantly asking for engagement, aren't you?
Because we're on the same side. It's not you versus me. It's we're collaborating together to solve this problem that's sitting over here, and we're on the same team. And if you've acknowledged the problem and you feel like I've listened to and you get a chance to buy into the solution, suddenly what's happening there is it's not a difficult conversation. I'm not telling you that you've done the wrong thing. It's we're problem solving something together. And I'm going to go, Sinjan, thanks so much for this conversation. You know, continuous improvement is really important. I'm here to support you. And then what has to come is that accountability we've spoken about.
Yeah,
right? So
I
it's
love
like,
that.
what's the agreed follow-up? And then my job as the leader is to follow up as we agreed. And also what comes sometimes between that follow-up is as soon as I see the improvements, I'm going to acknowledge them.
Yeah, catch them when they're good, eh?
Reinforcement. Yeah.
Catch them when they're good. You know, people are so starved of being valued and appreciated, and we could talk about that for ages. What I wanted to get another thing, because this is just gold straight away. I knew this was going to be a crack of a conversation, is when you're having that conversation, we've dropped the D word now, so see, I'm learning. It might sound semantical. I'm a big fan of using we language, not me language. Thoughts on that?
100%. Instead of the we and you, instead of me and you, it's us, it's we.
Yeah.
And it's something else in there is we want to address the behavior, not the person, or not the feelings. And I'll often use the example, I've got young kids. It's okay to be sad that I turned off Bluey. It's not okay to hit.
Yes, exactly.
Right? It's okay to be disappointed that I gave that client to someone else. It's not okay to be talking badly about them in front of whoever, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't ever tell someone that their feelings aren't valid. So we want to separate the feelings and the behavior. And something that might look like is I might catch you doing a behavior. We might be in a team meeting and you might do something inappropriate in the team meeting. And I'm going to jump on it right there, like as close to the moment as possible. But also you might not be ready in that moment. And you said before, if they've been hijacked, if it's heightened, it might be, hey, we're going to loop back to this conversation. We're going to circle back to it. And part of me framing up is saying, you are right to feel frustrated about what just happened there. I was feeling a bit frustrated myself. The client's been messing us around or whatever it might be, right? Because then again, there's the we.
Yeah.
I have no issue with the frustrated. That is totally valid.
Yeah.
What we need to talk about is whatever the behavior was. You know,
I love
yelling
that.
at blah, blah in that meeting was not appropriate. And this is why. It creates an unsafe environment or whatever. Yeah.
I really like this point of separating the feeling from the behaviour and validating how they're feeling so they're seen, heard and understood.
Yeah.
And then they're ready to receive your coaching, your instruction is like, hey, it's okay to be frustrated that we turn Bluey off, and who doesn't love Bluey, but it's not okay to hit your sibling.
Yep. And then let's talk about what we can do next time we're feeling frustrated. And the other thing as well is I really want to hone in that point of you can't tell someone not to feel a certain way. And if you're having a conversation and someone feels like you're telling them not to feel a certain way, their walls are going to go up and they're going to defend it because their feelings are justified. Yeah. You're not going to get anywhere if they feel like they need to justify their feelings. Yeah. So acknowledging the feelings and separating them from the behavior is what's going to get them able to talk about, okay, well, let's do whatever we need to change that behaviour.
Brilliant. So you enlist and roll them, you go for engagement early, and then you agree on mutually owned outcomes and goals and next actions. And then, as we said at the start of the call, it's our responsibility as a leader to follow up and keep them accountable and hold them to those goals. Otherwise, they know that we're not serious and we're just paying lip service to it.
Yep. And to acknowledge the improvements as we see them, because it can be quite demotivating to someone if they're doing the work.
Yeah.
And it's not acknowledged.
It.
It's the same as not holding the accountability. It's like, oh, well, what's the point?
Such an important point. Well done for grabbing that one. Okay, let's talk about the next D. So we talked about the D word, the difficult conversations. But let's talk about delegation. This is another thing that managers and leaders really struggle. Like, we might not have time to talk about the difference between managers and leaders. Maybe we will. But we've already touched on quite a lot already.
Yeah.
Delegation, a lot of managers really struggle to delegate because they just go, oh, well, by the time I bloody told them how to do it, I could have done it myself. I'll get out of the way, I'll do it. I'll rescue this deal for you, or I'll fill in the deal sheet, or whatever it is. Yep. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's easier if I do it myself, right? And in all honesty, it probably is easier if you do it yourself in this moment right here.
Yeah.
And if it was 1 5-minute task that you did per week, then absolutely it is easier if you do it yourself. But how many it's easier if I do it myself do you hold on to that suddenly it's not easier? And it impacts in kind of 2 ways. We take away the opportunity from that team member for them to learn, grow, develop, prove that they can do something, right? Feel stretched. That's going to get them engaged if they feel like they're learning and growing. It also, if we're doing something that they could be doing, it's taking us away from something that only we could be doing. And I like to think about it as compound interest. So it might take me 5 minutes to do the task, and it might take me half an hour to teach you. If I invest that time, and you've got to be doing it in a good way, otherwise, because I'll divert for a second. What sometimes happens is someone will do a half-assed job, and then the person doesn't pick it up because they haven't done a good job at articulating it. They haven't explained what a good job of it looks like. They haven't tailored it to that person.
Or they don't even know what good looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's part of, we won't go into it now, but, planning for a coaching conversation. So not a, difficult conversation, but planning for a coaching conversation is, what does a good job of this look like? Right? You've got to consider that. So they do a half-assed job at it. The team member is going to do their best, but they're probably not going to do a great job at it. And then the leader goes, well, this is why it's easier if I do it myself. And then they're reaffirming that belief, right?
Yeah. And then they're caught in this vicious cycle and this mousetrap of trying to save their team. Yeah. And then they resent the team because they're the rescuer, which we talked about with our victim triangle.
Yep.
And
then the team get disengaged as well because they're like, well,
you're not letting me do my job, and you don't trust me to do my job because they didn't invest the time to coach them how to do their job.
And I often hear this conversation where leaders will say something like, my team never come up with new ideas, so I always have to do it. Or they never solve problems, so I always have to do it. And it's almost the chicken or the egg. It's like, did they not come up with new ideas because you always come up with them? Or do you always come up with them because they don't? And I'll often say it's because the leader's taking control of it. So the compound interest that we see is it's going to take me half an hour if I do a really good job now.
Yeah.
That's going to pay interest in a week's time if it's a daily task.
That's right.
Then I've empowered that person. They're doing it. It's off my plate. I can put my focus into something else. Yeah. And leaders will often say, I don't have time to do that. Or they'll say, I really need to find time to do that. And if you wait to find it, you're never going to find it.
You're never going to be there.
You need to make time. And the thing is like compound interest, right? Invest a bit of time now and you will get dividends paid in your time back.
I think it's like the quote, teach a man to fish, be able to feed himself. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he can feed his family for a lifetime. Yeah. So it's very much the same kind of philosophy is make sure you make and take the time to train and coach your team because there's a compound effect here, particularly if it's a repetitive task. And to be honest, we don't need to be Alfredo Pareto to work out that literally 80% of what you do all the time is the same stuff, right?
And the high-performing leaders that I work with, they love delegation. because it means they're empowering their team to do it. It means they're freeing up space for themselves to invest in other places in their team or in stuff that only they can do.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is a skill, and there's often discomfort that comes with it. But if you lean into that and you see it as an opportunity rather than like an obstacle, then it can absolutely be.
Great reframe. It's an opportunity, it's not obstacle. And the thing is, you have to make the time to save time. So what Jess is saying here is, because I hear it all the time, like, oh no, I can't train my teams how to sell better and all this of it. It's like, well, if you don't, you're going to have to rescue every single deal, and you have to be involved in every, and you have to be the white knight, and you have to rescue every deal, and then you probably do discounts because you're the big boss, and then you're going to disempower your team, and they're going to leave you because they're going to get pissed off and they're going to hate you.
And the results are capped.
Yeah, capped.
The results are going to be capped if you're the one. Yeah.
Like you are literally the bottleneck. And then again, this resentment, the person you need to resent and responsible is actually yourself, because you created that, you perpetuated the problem you were trying to prevent in the first place, right? Because you didn't agree to the discipline of making. It's the single biggest mistake I see, Jess, is they don't make and take the time to coach or train their teams. It's crazy, isn't it? And then the same thing at the beginning, oh yeah, I was going to have my one-on-one, I was going to have my coaching conversation, I was going to have my, and something else got in the way. I think training and coaching are the highest, you and I have already grasped that, is the highest leverage activity, because it has such a multiplication effect.
Yeah.
Because if you teach them once, they can teach it again and again, and guess what? Then they can go and teach it to someone else. Yeah.
Yep. And that's also going to pay off in, their engagement is going to be high. Not only their results, but they're going to be more engaged because they feel like they're actually doing stuff. Because otherwise what we hear is, oh, there's no point, my manager's going to do it anyway, so I'm just not even going to try.
Yeah, so, and you're not going to get the true performance and potential out of that person. Now, the third D, the guys, you can spot there's a theme here. We talked about difficult, in inverted commas, conversations. We talked about delegation and the delegation trap. The third one that we want to talk about is the cost of disengagement. Explain to the listeners what you've learned and give us some stats, give us some facts, like it's expensive, what's going on?
It is so expensive, and it's fall off your chair expensive. And I had a group the other day that were like, I almost don't want to know. And it's like, you can stick your head in the sand. Ignorance might be bliss, particularly when we put numbers to it. But the reality is what it is. So my view is it's better to know about it and know what you can.
Let's confront the listeners and the viewers here, Jess. Give us some numbers off the top of the head. I've heard some, but you'll be closer to it.
Yeah. So this is from Gallup's Global State of the Workplace, and they break down, it's a brilliant report. They break down global, but also Australia and Canada and US and whatever. So they do breakdowns, but essentially what we're looking at is 17% globally, people are actively disengaged.
So that's almost 1/5 of your workforce. One in five.
It's a scary figure. So 17% are disengaged. So the 17 you can quote me on. The actively engaged is something like 21%. And then the majority sits in the middle. So the actively engaged, they're what Gallup defined as they're thriving.
Yeah.
Then 60 whatever percent sit in the middle. They're defined as the quiet quitters. Okay? And so let's not even think about them. If we just look at the 17% that are actively disengaged, what we know is people who are actively disengaged are around 18% less productive with their time. And it's costing us anywhere from 18 to 36-ish% of their salary. I usually talk about the midpoint, which is 24%.
Yeah.
So what that means is if someone is actively disengaged, and let's say just for math's sake, they're on 100K salary, that's costing you, if you put it in the middle, if we go conservative, 24K, or if not, up to 36K of their salary.
Over 30 of the salary.
That is just lost to disengagement. Now, that's not accounting for the missed opportunity costs of better profitability, more sales. This is literally just, you can cut that off the bottom of their salary, and that is lost to disengagement. Then
are there just on that, when we talk about leading indicators and lagging indicators, what are the leading indicators, the front ones, not the past ones, of actively disengaged? Is it absenteeism? What are the things you see
Yeah,
as a
so
manager?
we see absenteeism, we see presenteeism, which is actually significantly more expensive. So absenteeism is unscheduled absences due to sickness or stress, or I don't just want to be here and I get this many sick days, so I'm going to take them.
You call them Doona days. Yeah.
What did you call them?
Doona days.
Unit days, yeah. And then we've got presenteeism, which is significantly more expensive, where they're at work, but they're not performing, right? They're essentially keeping a seat warm. And they're watching the clock, and they're doing the absolute bare minimum. And not only that, but they're poisoning everyone else in the team.
Yeah. I call them the 501s. They usually leave by 501.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not Levi's. So 17% are actively disengaged.
Yeah.
The middle are quiet quitters, and then the 21% are thriving.
Driving, yeah.
And so we talked then about leading indicators. There will be a ton of people who are thinking over their lovely break here in Australia and New Zealand, what's my boss like? What's my runway like? Where's my promotion prospects? There must be so many people, and then they come back in January, because we know the recruiters and things change a lot. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, it's very timely, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I've got a friend who's an employment lawyer, and she's busy around this time because, excuse the language around it, but people want to cut the fat before they go into the new year, and it's crappy to fire someone in December or right around Christmas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely, that's happening. And to go back to some of the figures where it gets really scary is you've got employee disengagement. What is more impactful is manager disengagement. And what we know is globally, manager disengagement has dropped and employee disengagement has dropped. And we know that employee disengagement has dropped because manager engagement. They've both gone down.
Yep.
And so a disengaged manager is very dangerous. And
Tell me more about that.
Well, when we're talking about quantifying it, so they can amplify a disengaged employee by like 2.5 times. So what that means is if we had that person, they were on 100K, we put them in the middle, 24K,
Yeah.
times that by 2.5
Yeah.
is what you can lose if they're being managed by a disengaged manager. So we're losing the employee's salary to disengagement. We're losing that manager's salary to disengagement, but then because that manager is disengaged, they're amplifying the disengagement of their team by up to 2.5 times.
I get it. So it's a multiplication effect, but in a downward spiral bad way, not a good way.
Yes, but this is Gallup research. That 2.5 times can either be positive or negative. So a great manager who is really engaged can amplify by 2.5 times. And this is where we see the best performing organizations, better productivity, better profitability, better customer loyalty, better sales, better safety, or 2.5 times in the negative, which is essentially like 85% of that person's salary is just lost to disengagement because of a poor manager. So
I was just thinking when you were doing that, I was at a conference, a machinery business conference, and the HR lady, she's very, very good. She put all her stats together. She knew them really well. She said something, I'm desperately trying to find it, is that basically they were doing their exit surveys, which is good. And then they were saying that basically in the first 6 months, people were actually thinking whether they're going to stay in that job or not in the first 6 months. And I thought that was an alarming statistic because the manager will make or break that, right? But the whole M&Ms, managers and meetings, but basically people don't usually lose jobs for money. They leave jobs because of managers. So
70% of the variance between the highest engaged teams and the lowest engaged teams comes down to the manager.
Wow.
So
now,
the manager's literally the biggest lever.
Brilliant. Now let's talk about this. We've often talked about team disengagement, but manager disengagement. That's such a bigger problem, which is just really, really important. We talk about what's going on there, and what are some of the tools, and what are some of the signs and some of the solutions there.
Yeah, the reason why the manager disengagement is such it's the ripples. It's the ripples that come out. And go back to our culture conversation, go back to our accountability conversation, is a bad culture will beat a good person every time. And, if you think about an individual high performer, if they have a bad manager, they're not going to stick around.
No.
they're not going to tolerate it because high performers want to work with other high performers. Right? So not only are you losing their salary to disengagement, it's being multiplied by the manager and you're missing out on all these opportunity costs, but you're also going to lose your best performers. Yeah. And then you're going to get stuck with the average performers, which,
it's great. It's not going to be great because it's going to be average. And the funny thing is also I see in the sales sense, I say to my managers, if you tolerate low sales performers, your highest sales performers in my sales world will leave you.
Yep.
And this is exactly what Jess is saying, because they feel that they're subsidizing, and they also call it weak leadership.
Yep. And it's the leader's job. And often people assume that the high performers will raise the average performers up. It doesn't happen. The high performers leave and the average performers go, oh, thank God they're gone, because they were making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And I'll often have these conversations. I had the conversation with a client recently where there's someone who's underperforming. They're not in sales, but there's someone who's underperforming, and they're butting heads with someone who is a really high performer. And I was like, you are going to lose that person in place of this one. And it's because the leader hasn't had those conversations that they need to. And now suddenly they're 12, 16 months into this person's role, and it's that much harder to have the conversation because they didn't hold accountability from the very beginning.
You are talking the truth, my friend. Right, let's talk about burnout and energy management, because you and I are in agreement that actually energy management is more important than time management. Talk me about burnout. What do you teach about your managers to make sure delegation is obviously a big part of that, but how do you help them manage their energy? Because being a manager isn't what it's always cracked up to be. Everyone wants to, how many reports do you have? I usually say as little as possible.
Yeah.
Probably because I'm not the best, but I'm tough on my teams. But burnout, it's a big thing.
Yeah, it is, and it's a globally recognized syndrome actually now by the World Health Organization. So it's a really big issue, and I won't quote them because I don't know them off the top of my head. But the stats of how often do you feel burnt out from that Gallup study that I was talking about, the global state of the workplace, was like ridiculously high. And this is for leaders and team members. So this is an issue. Here's the thing: is people don't burn out because they're of the hours that they're working. They get to burn out because of how they're working those hours, right? And it's because they're working them in an unsustainable way. And we are all about better outcomes with less effort. And so I'm a what's called a strategic partner with a brilliant organization called Next Evolution Performance, and they have done all of the research into the neuroscience of it. And we talk about energy as a currency. And people, you brought up time management versus energy management. We talk about time because it's something that we can measure. The problem is people don't understand the concept of energy. And so we talk about, well, you've got 24 hours in a day. Imagine if we talk about you've got 100 energy credits to spend. Now, if you said to someone, rate how you're feeling energy-wise on a scale of 1 to 10, and let's say someone gives you, I'm at a 5 out of 10 today, maybe you then have 50 energy credits to spend.
Yeah.
And the reason that people get burnt out is they're overspending their energy on a consistent basis, right? And we can think about it as like a budgeting situation. If you continuously spend more money than you've got, you are going to be in debt, and it's not going to be pretty, right?
Yeah,
so
I love this.
If we think about money and you want more money, you've got two options. You can earn more or you can spend less. What's the easiest one to immediately do right away? Earn more or spend less?
I would say it would be, if I say earn more or spend less, I would say, I might have this wrong, I would try and spend less.
That's exactly right. Buy one less coffee out, take your food to work. It is so much easier to spend $5
than
today
earn it.
than try to go out and make 5 more. And it is exactly the same with energy.
Yeah.
Right?
I love this currency.
And the thing is, if we do time versus energy credits, is a task might take you 10 minutes, but it might cost you 20 energy credits.
Yeah.
And this is why I said it's not the hours that we work that lead to burnout, it's how we spend those hours.
Yes.
Right? So going back to the earn more or spend less, it is significantly easier to spend less energy than it is to get more energy. We can get more through things like exercise, which costs a little to make a little, right? And you were talking about, I went for a swim before this, and that was an investment of time. It was a small investment of energy, but it paid dividends that you've now got more, right? So we can do things to get more energy: exercise, gratitude, mindfulness, meditation, breathing, all of those things. What is actually easier is for me to just waste less energy. And a really simple example is like notifications.
Yeah.
Right?
Turn them off.
I'm on a mission against notifications, right? But even something as simple as, think about energy in this way, right? Someone cuts you off in traffic.
Yeah.
It costs you 0 energy credits to take a deep breath and say, I'm not going to focus on that. It might cost you 5 to road rage after them for the next 10 minutes, or 10 or 20 credits.
Yeah. I learned there's a way, it's called fundamental attribution error. So basically, if you're driving to work and someone cut you off, you go, oh, you rude bastard, blah, blah, blah. But if it was you and you were late, there would be a justifiable reason why you had to cut in. And there's also the photocopier experiment where you give them a reason why. Do you mind if I cut into the queue because I've got to collect my son from school? Otherwise, so this fundamental attribution error is a classic.
Yeah. So you're late, it's your fault. You should have left earlier. You should be more.
Whereas me, it was, I had a justifiable excuse because the traffic was really, really bad. So we're going into here. So burnout.
I would just loop that also. It's back to accountability.
Yeah. So tell us, go on, tell us.
Well, it's that do we live and breathe a culture of accountability, right? Maybe I'm late because of traffic, but I'm going to say, I should have left earlier. I'm going to own that. And there's always going to be stuff that's going to happen outside. But it's like, we want to build a culture of accountability. I'm big on this, even with my kids. I mean, poor kids having a coach as a mum. But you made me stub my toe. Well, did I grab your toe and shove it into the floor? No, but you asked me to come inside. Okay, you stubbed your toe on your way inside. It was an accident. It's not my fault. Right? But you were running, you tried to jump over the step, so I'm not trying to blame them, but it's like ingraining that I'm in control of me. I'm going to take accountability for it.
Listeners, have you spotted the theme here? Like, me and Jess learned all our favourite tips and tricks from like parenting books, but I mean, there is actually some truth to that.
I talk about this all the time with the people that I coach. It is the same things that we talk to our kids about. You can feel a certain way, you got to choose how to respond, and it's acknowledging their feelings, and it's not saying but, and it's actively listening, even if we've got our own agenda, and it's, I can brush your teeth faster, but if I get you to practice brushing your teeth, eventually you can do that while I can be getting ready. There's delegation in that.
Yeah.
Right? So, leadership skills, parenting, they're one and the same.
Now, here's another thing. Managers, I have a group of managers, sales managers that I train in sales and sales coaching, all that kind of stuff, my kind of sandpit, and one of the biggest things, I said to him, 2025, what are you going to sort out in 2026? It's going to be a rerun. For a very topical timing. Now, you'll laugh at this. Most of them said, the first thing they said is, I need more disciplined about my exercise. And my late father would used to say, exercise for energy, St. John. And I've lived and breathed that, and I've managed to get through life and achieve quite a lot by just being physically fit. And I make the time. Now, the irony, the counterintuitive, the contradictory here is, the more stressed you are, and you know this, and your partner knows this because you're gym owners, right? The more stressed you are, the more you need to move.
Yeah.
But then I don't have time because the first thing that goes when you're super stressed is your sleep. And the next thing is you're tired, so you don't exercise. And then when you don't exercise, you try and chase artificial energy, and your pies, it's not cool. Like, what advice have you got for the listeners when they say, but I don't have time to exercise?
You don't have time not to. Right? It's like the people who say, I don't have time to sleep, right? Sleep, hydration, nutrition are like fundamentals. And then my next one off that is exercise. And that's part of, and your dad obviously understood energy as a currency. So exercise, it is an investment. And I'm biased. My background is in the fitness industry.
That's what I was asking you.
do it because I love it? Is it always easy for me to get up at 4:30 in the morning and do it, especially when it's cold and dark in winter? No, but I do it because I know it pays dividends for my energy, for my focus, for my body.
Your family, for the way you show up, for the way you show up for your partner.
There's so much that comes from that. But yeah, I mean, if I were to get real fussy on like human performance, and people are always looking for the hacks, and I don't like the idea of hacks because it sounds like a shortcut, but it's like, I cannot understate the importance of getting good quality sleep. If you don't have that, everything else is going to be impacted. Hydration.
Yep.
If you're 1% hydrated, so our brain is like 85% water or something like that. If your brain is 1% hydrated, you experience a 5% decrease in cognitive function.
Yeah, cognitive decline. Yeah, 100%.
Right?
And you've got to be drinking water before you're dehydrated.
The goal is to never get thirsty. That's what I talk about. Because
my goal is never to get hungry.
Yeah, right? Because then it means that you're not actually... So thirst is an early warning sign, but you're already a little bit dehydrated by then, right? So if we're talking about high performance, yes, there's little things that we can do up here, but it's like, get your fundamentals right. Sleep, hydration, exercise...
What are you saying, Jet? I mean, because I drink green tea, because me on coffee is a really scary proposition. But like, some people are like, 5 coffees. I've got to have 5 coffees. And it's like, that is an artificial stimulant, and you crash and burn, and it's your low GI foods and everything else. And because you understand the fitness and all better than me, but I call them the core 4: sleep, exercise, nutrition, and hydration. And if you get those 4 things right, a lot goes right, right?
Yeah, and again, take it back to, what are we going for? It's high performance, but it's sustainable high performance.
Brilliant. I'm so glad we came back to this. Sustained. Tell me about sustained. Let's go there.
Again, it goes back to, it's not the hours that we work that lead to burnout, it's how we work those hours. So what we want to be doing is managing energy as our currency, right? And so there's things that we can be doing to be spending less energy. And to start with that is, we need to understand energy. We need to understand where our energy is being spent.
Yes.
Right? And it's the obvious things like exercise and movement, but it's also things like being in a boring meeting, and it's being inside, and natural sunlight can impact us positively, and hydration, and the itchy tag on the back of your shirt that just kind of niggles you.
I remember you talking about that. Yes.
So many things that impact our energy, but we're not even aware of it. So first one is, become aware of where you're spending it, just like if you were doing a financial budget. Become aware of where you're spending it. Spend less where you don't need to, then you've got more to invest. And I'm not saying you have to invest it in work. You can invest it in family or yourself or whatever it might be, right? But it's unsustainable if we are constantly overspending our energy. That's when we lead to burnout. So sustainable high performance, what we've got to remember is we've got the cognitive energy. There's also physical energy as a part of that. And that's why in this we talk about the neuroscience that underpins it, and it's the sleep and hydration and nutrition and the stuff that might sound boring that people go, yeah, I know this. It's like, well, if you know it, why aren't you doing it?
If you know it, why aren't you doing it? I love it. You know, when you get to the end of a session, you're going to laugh because you're a fellow trainer and you and I have worked on the same kind of clients. Some of them, not all of them, but some go, oh yeah, no, this is great. I kind of knew this stuff already. You see, did you hear how Jess laughed there? You go, yeah, so if you were doing it, and you knew it, why weren't you doing it? Or when we asked you, why didn't you explain it to the group? Because these seem to be new concepts to you. But this is called hindsight bias. And there's a lot in terms of status and significance and not showing deficiency and everything else. But the more open and vulnerable you are, and the more honest you are with yourself, the more you're going to grow, right? Because obviously to know yourself, you have to grow yourself. So, or to grow yourself, you have to know yourself, as John C. Maxwell talks about.
And something I would take that back to, if we kind of go back to something we were talking about earlier, is a little bit of a vulnerability from a leader. Like, I would much prefer that a leader says, that's a great question, I should probably know the answer, but I don't, let's go figure it out.
Yeah.
Versus trying to fumble their way through, or saying,
exactly.
oh, you go figure, because it's like, you're telling people it's okay to not know.
Yeah.
Right? That's leading by example. That's making it okay for them to not know, which makes that culture of accountability so much easier, because it means that people feel safe to go, I screwed up.
Yeah. So
or
good.
I know I said I was going to have this, but I forgot to get it to you, or whatever that might be.
So good. The sustained performance, sustained high performance, and the core 4 that you talk about is magical. Last one, Jess. Facilitation. What are your tips on facilitation? What makes a good facilitator?
Oh, I like this question. I would say curiosity.
Yeah, such a good answer.
Yeah, I'm a very curious person by nature. And I think one of the core skills of communication is asking really great questions, and that
Yeah.
can only come from being curious. And I said before that listening is not a passive activity, it's an active activity. And if you are listening and you've got to park judgment, you've got to park bias, and you've got to be listening with a curiosity lens. I learn something from every single conversation I have, whether that be a coaching session, whether that be a workshop, whether it be a CEO or a frontline team member. Like, I learn, and I'm just like an innately curious person. So I listen and I'm curious, and I also never have the lens of I know everything.
Yeah.
And
No,
I think
no,
I think
the more you
facility.
learn, the more you realize you don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Right. I've got these cards from the Diary of the CEO, and he has these conversation cards. Have you seen them?
I
There they are.
bloody love that. That is my favorite
It's one of
podcast.
the Knowledge Project by Shane Paris is also very good. And so
Yes.
there's these sort of things. So, what is something that you've learned about yourself the most in doing this in the last 3 years?
So the main one that comes to mind is around the energy management. When I really learned about that, it challenged me to restructure how and where I invest my time and energy. I I'm a morning person. I've always known that I was a morning person. And the view that I was taking was, okay, well, if I do my best work in the morning, then that's when I should be engaging with my clients. I should do all my workshops, all my coaching sessions, all my meetings up front in the top of my day, because that's when my energy is at its best, because I'm a morning person. And then I'll leave the afternoon for my on the business stuff.
Yeah.
The issue with that was my brain doesn't work very well post about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I was trying to do really
Okay, we're getting pretty dangerous here now. We're in dangerous territory.
so here's the thing, right? This is what I would call light. So if we're talking in terms of energy spend, in terms of like
You're
cognitive,
enjoying this. You're enjoying this.
I
You're
get
getting
energy from this. So I could have this conversation with you at 10 o'clock at night, and I would still be pretty sharp because I'm getting so much energy from this.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I was having to write a business proposal,
Yeah.
even though I like doing that, it's cognitively
drain.
more taxing for me. It's heavier. And so before I would do that at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it would take me twice as long, it would be twice as draining, and the output would be half as good. So once I learned about energy, it wasn't just knowing I'm a morning person, but it was considering, okay, I'm at my best in the morning. What are my heaviest tasks?
Yeah, and match your energy to that. I love this.
I flipped my day, and now that, like, my morning, my prime time, I protect that with my life.
Yes.
And if I have a free day and you want to book in, my first 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I book my way up from there because I want to protect my morning for the stuff that is heavier.
Yes.
In the afternoon, I can still do a really great job because this kind of stuff
You're
is
getting the energy because you love your training and facilitation. I call them power hours.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
We also put a barbed wire fence or electric fence around the first 2 hours because my Aussie clients give me a couple of hours break before the phones start ringing. And the other thing is, I think what you're doing is, this is the epigenetic side of things, is you knowing when you work at your best. And so what you're saying is, you're a morning person and you said, hey, I need to have all my energy for my clients, all the training and facilitation that you do, but actually you need to save your energy for your heaviest task because you have a natural energy which you gain from energy in the afternoon when you train your clients, right?
I was spending my best energy time on things that didn't require my energy.
Yes, perfect.
Right? And so I flipped my day, and that was, I know it's a cliche, but that was game-changing to the output of things.
Absolutely.
And for the leaders listening to this, the challenge is, first one is knowing yourself and when your energy is at its best, and if you can map your day around that. The next one is, what about your team? And it's like, there's not always going to be a perfect time for a team meeting.
No.
But do you need to be doing, is a team meeting heavy, or is it just a check-in? If it's just a check-in, maybe it's better to do a bit later in the day if you have a lot of people who, like me, are morning people, right? So considering those kinds of things as well. When are you booking your meetings? If you find it cognitively draining to do a one-on-one with someone, book that when you're at your best, because that time is so valuable for that team member. And if you're drained going into it, you're not going to do a good job.
So good.
So the whole concept of energy and energy management is just, It's so valuable.
We haven't got enough time to talk about open door policy and the switching costs, the cost of switching costs, but like
Very expensive.
booking
Let's just say
interruption
it's expensive.
time, and then it's very expensive, as Jess saying. Last questions. What's the one of the most fascinating things you've learned? Because I know you love your neuroscience, and me, I love my psychology and human behavior. What are some of the most interesting books or facts you've started to learn more around neuroscience as you've gone deeper into being more curious about that topic, about that subject?
Yeah. I mean, overall, I love the topic of neuroplasticity, the fact that our brains can change. And we're either laying down helpful or unhelpful wiring. And here's the thing with neuroscience, and I want you to try this now, for everyone listening. I want you to try to have a helpful and an unhelpful thought at the same time.
Oh, I don't like that because that's cognitive dissonance for me, and I don't like it.
You can't do it. You can jump between the two. This is great. This sucks. I love this. I hate. You can jump between the two, but you can't have the two at the same time.
No, it's taking too much. It's taking too much computing power because I don't want to hold two opposing thoughts in the same mind.
Yeah, and you can't even hold them. You can switch. You can rapidly switch, which is draining. We can't have a helpful and unhelpful thought at the same time. So the reason I love this is for every second we're having a helpful thought, we're not having an unhelpful thought. Now there's this interesting ratio, 3-to-1 positive to negative thoughts is what leads to thriving.
So good.
And so all we need to do is just increase the ratio, and it's not about getting to zero. It's not about never having them, but it's about increasing the ratio. And if we're aware of our brain and where it's going, if we catch those unhelpful thoughts, we can then reframe them and choose to lay those helpful ones. And so I just love the idea of neuroplasticity. Someone said this yesterday, can you teach an old dog new tricks? And I said, yeah, if they want to.
If they want to. That's the caveat. So that neuroplasticity, that neuroscientist Herb Keller, I think, he talked about neurons that fire together, wire together. And so basically, some people have lost the right part of the hemisphere of their brain, or the corpus that separates the two hemispheres. And what were right brain artistic things, this person could draw like a pro, and do art, because they've rewired their brain very early on in their life in their left brain, because obviously our brains are you and I could geek out on this stuff.
Yeah, we could.
Jeez. But anyway, now, Jess, you've been an absolute legend here. How do people get hold of you? Where do they go? I know you complement what we do very, very well. You and I work hand in hand together sometimes, where you do the management leadership stuff and I do all the sales grotty stuff. Where do people go? How do they connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is generally where I like to hang out. I like to think that I post some useful content on there, so definitely LinkedIn. I mean, my website, humantribe.com.au. I'm going to put out a little teaser when we were talking about the cost of disengagement. I am launching a disengagement calculator, and I've actually got one live for the ag industry because of some work that I've done in the space just recently. And basically you can enter how many employees have you got, how many managers, how many agronomists, how many branches, average salaries, and it will calculate that cost of disengagement, as well as where are my savings opportunities. So I haven't publicly launched that, but for anyone who's...
We can update that. We'll update it in the show notes and we'll get the team to do that.
And if someone contacts me and said, I heard you on the podcast and you mentioned this, I will link you right now to it.
There you go, listeners.
It's so powerful to have those figures.
Jess, I love your energy. I love your curiosity. I love your learning. We could jam for hours and hours and hours, but we will probably bore our listeners to death because we get the energy. Maybe they have too with a bit of luck. Hopefully they've learned something. But I loved what we covered around delegation, around what we call difficult conversations, which are just conversations, and the driver's disengagement. And I'm looking forward to seeing the calculator and all the good things. And I hope I will be bumping into you in my travels soon enough in the new year. So thank you. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Can I offer one thing to the listeners? I'm very much about action, and I'll often talk about this in a workshop. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I try to do this for myself. We talked about a lot today. Hopefully everyone felt our energy and they enjoyed it as much as we did, and they had the smiles that we had. What I would say is you can't change everything. You can't take everything on. It's like pick one thing and make it meaningful for you and do something with it.
So good.
And even if it's just one thing from the whole conversation, that one thing will move you forward. So that's what I encourage everyone
Love
to
it. Love
do.
it. I was being greedy and generous, going power of 3, power of 3, and Jess says, hey Sinjin, let's just make it easy. I agree. Choose one thing, one bite of the elephant at a time, right? One hoof at a time.
That's exactly
What's the
right.
one thing you can do? Is it about disengagement? Is it about delegation? Is it about the difficult conversations? Maybe you've got to go back and listen to this again. Reach out to Jess, use the resources. Jess, you've been an absolute bloody legend.
Thanks.
Keep doing the great work you do, and I love talking to you, so well done you.
The feeling is mutual. Thank you.